Nobody told her about the billable hour. That would have been great if that was the question. You know, like they ask when they ask the Miss America pageants these really in-depth questions, you could be, what is your opinion of the billable hour?
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast, a show for accountants and bookkeepers using cloud technology to make their jobs more strategic and impactful. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
So David, what's new in the world of cloud accounting this week?
I think an article came out about 5 minutes ago. This is on Insightful Accountant. It's a little time about QuickBooks, but I think it's a little bit bigger story here. It's about how the new bank feeds are going to use tokens. So a lot of you have used apps with your cloud accounting apps, right? Where your accounting software apps, you authorize the app. So you would say, yes, Bill.com can read and write my QuickBooks data or my Xero data. Mm-hmm. So you're granting them a token to do that. Well, just the opposite's kind of going to happen now where your bank account. So if I have a bank account with Chase, I'm going to grant Chase access to, or I'm going to grant QuickBooks access to my Chase bank account. So instead of giving Intuit my Chase username and password, mm-hmm. and then Intuit, every time they need to get the bank feeds, basically is mimicking you going to the website in a strange kind of way, right? It's scraping that off their site. It'll issue a token, so the connection will be more reliable. It'll be more long-term. The banks are happy because they're in a little bit more control, right? It's just higher security. And then ultimately, in most token-based models, you can disconnect. So I'm sure somewhere on the Chase's website, I could see all the stuff I've granted access to my bank account.
Rather than having to change your password in order to make sure that everything's disconnected if you get rid of an app or something like that.
Exactly. So it's using more of a standard web model, a token-based model to connect.
It's kind of crazy, actually, that the old way of doing it, like actually giving your username and password for your banking, has been the way that we've granted access to software to our bank feeds for so long. I mean, that's just so not secure.
Yeah, you're giving it to a big, huge company like Intuit or Xero, right, to get your bank feed access, or there's some third-party providers that provide that. But if you really go before services like that existed, people were like accountants and bookkeepers were just keeping it in a QuickBase, or they're keeping it written down in a folder. They were keeping their clients' usernames and passwords, which is really on the crazy side. You're right. If you think about it in the long, bigger picture, yeah.
And I actually remember this being an issue with HubDoc. I think that's still how they do it. And so periodically, I will get alerts from Bank of America that somebody is logging into my bank account from Canada, and it worried me at first, and then I realized what was happening, that they're flagging HubDoc logging in. Yeah,
which is great. You're being alerted of that, but the problem is it also how do you know that one time it wasn't fraud?
Right. And also, and then customers, clients of a firm that's using a solution like that have no clue what's going on, and that worries them a lot. And they get scared, and then they change the password, and then nothing works anymore.
Yeah. And so this will probably roll out to the bigger banks first, right, that are big enough to have their own APIs. But then when you talk about the mm-hmm. mid-sized banks and even the credit unions and some of the regionals, a lot of those use tech stacks they purchase from somebody else. Mm-hmm. So once that tech stack, all of a sudden out of nowhere, 2,000 regionals will all have the same technology stack, right? Because they're using somebody else's software under their covers. But you're probably going to first see this with the Chases, the Bank of Americas, the Wells Fargos, the big players first. Because ultimately the banks, I think we've talked about this before, they want to be in the API business. Right? Mm-hmm. They want to provide APIs.
They should be. It's crazy that they don't want access to more data. Cool. Well, hey, speaking of, since we started with software news, feature releases and whatnot, I've got one here. Sage Intacct has revealed that they acquired Budgeta. I think that's how you say it. Back in, I think it was 2017, and they didn't make an announcement at the time. But now they are announcing that they did in fact acquire Budgeta, which is a budgeting and planning application, and they have released a version that they are calling Sage Intacct Budgeting and Planning. Very similar to the T-Sheets getting acquired by Intuit and HubDoc getting acquired by Xero. This is now Budgeta getting acquired by Sage Intacct, this time in the mid-market. I think they're still leaving Budgeta as a standalone application, but now you have a deeper integration with Intacct. And if you're an Intacct user, you can more easily go and implement a budgeting and planning tool.
That makes sense. It kind of goes to that. I know after you went to Intacct's conference, right? your next conference, you came back and you said that they're kind of adding more consumer-facing features, if that's the right word in it, right? And so I imagine this is going to lead to dashboards and graphs inside their product.
Yeah. Well, in Intacct, they do have dashboards. That's one of the big selling points of going to their solution is you don't have to have a separate dashboard solution. It's all in there, right? Totally customizable. But they did not have the budgeting planning side of it. So it's interesting. I'm curious what this means, say, for competitors like Adaptive Insights, Host Analytics. But I imagine that it'll be very similar to these other acquisitions that have happened, where nobody tries to muscle out the non-owned add-ons or the third-party add-ons. It just doesn't make sense. Just another example of how, right, ERPs, cloud accounting solutions are trying to broaden the services they offer or the features that they have, while still allowing for integrations. Or you get to have your cake, you get to eat it too. You can use what the built-in budgeting and planning of Intacct now, or you can go get some other solution that maybe fits your needs better.
Yeah, as long as everybody keeps their APIs open, the future will continue down that path. Absolutely.
Hey, speaking of speaking of wars, the trade war is going on still. Tariffs and all that with China. And I just heard something about it on the news, but it didn't have anything to do with cloud accounting, so I wasn't really paying that attention. But then I also recently saw an article in the Wall Street Journal about how tariffs could actually increase costs on cloud computing. I didn't really think that was possible, right? Because cloud computing, hey, it's in the cloud. We're talking about data. These are not physical things that we have to purchase, right? I figured tariffs are limited to cars and cell phones and whatnot, right? But it turns out that part of the Trump administration's proposed tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods includes levies of up to 25% on routers, switches, and servers that will raise prices for cloud services in the U.S. That's according to Wall Street Journal. And what is the actual cost of this? Well, if there were a 10% levy on all of these imports, all these hardware devices that we use for cloud computing in our data centers, that could slow U.S. economic output by $163 billion over the next 10 years. And a 25% levy would slow output by $332 billion.
Got it. So it's not the actual cloud accounting, the servers, the companies that provide cloud accounting services aren't really involved in the tariffs. It's the hardware that all of this infrastructure, everything's built on.
Yeah, the hardware that Amazon buys, for its Amazon Web Services data centers, or that Salesforce buys, or Oracle, or Microsoft. So basically, if that substantially increases the cost to provide cloud computing services on the back end, theoretically that will get passed through to businesses, and then ultimately to those businesses, either business customers or consumer end customers at some point. I guess it just depends on how much the cloud computing vendors can absorb, or if they'll pass it on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We're obviously focused on small business and accounting and accounting technology here, but it'll really be interesting. All of the free services, all the consumer stuff that's just free out there, advertising-based models, right? Our advertisers are going to have to pay more, or some of these free services, just maybe they at X, they were able to offer these services for free, and at this new price, X plus 5, they just can't. Right. And so it'd be interesting to see the impact. I could see you could see prices go up, possibly, and small businesses could afford to pay $2 more a month for a SaaS app or something like that. But it's these free apps. So it'd be interesting. Like, can something go from free to paid because it just costs more to provide that service?
Yeah. Now? Or our advertisers going to have to pay more on Facebook, that sort of thing. Right. And that affects small businesses, because if you're an accounting firm or a small business, you should be advertising on social media. It's a no-brainer at this point.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And I think everything, who knows where things are headed come November. Midterms are right around the corner.
That's true.
So I have another one, kind of swinging all the way back to billable hours again.
Mm-hmm. My favorite topic. I love the billable hour.
Let's try this article out for you. AI and machine learning could empower your accounting career path. So there's an article from Levi Morehouse. Levi has an accounting firm, Ceterus. It's very, very, very automation driven. So everything is high volume clients. all automation. But his article really talks about there's two paths. It's not the only path. So his firm's like that. And there's a path for people that are going to automate everything and take on large numbers, high volume of clients. But there's still another path, right, as we go forward. And that's going to be that advising type path. So that's going to be more similar to like what Jason Blumer preaches with Thrival, or Chris Farman's really doing that with Small Batch Standard, which is he's only focusing on breweries, right? And he's nailing it with just 40 breweries, just unbelievable. So there's kind of two paths in that. He has a good paragraph or quote in here. Let me read that out.
Oh, I've got it right here.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah. So he says, I love this quote. Levi says, accountants can either become communicators of critical business data and information, empowered to advise key stakeholders on business initiatives based on keen insight, or they can become experts in redesigning traditional industry processes to be more efficient by leveraging modern technology. So like you said, there are two paths to the future for accountants. You can become that advisor, business coach, communicator of financial information, storyteller is how I like to think of it, or you can become a process automation technology person, and you focus on getting rid of all of that data entry and stuff like, which, that's basically what I was doing a lot of, right, at my firm. So it's great because there's something for everybody. Yeah,
I think the third path, which is like kind of flap around in the middle between those two paths, is the danger zone. Like you're going to have to have a super highly efficient firm that takes on thousands of clients, or a firm that is a super niche and you're super expert, right, and you have amazing advising and you're super hands-on. Exactly. So, but if you're kind of in the middle, like if it's tough, it's going to be really, really tough.
Right. Well, and ideally your firm, if you're big enough, you do both, right? You have people in the firm who are experts at IT and process automation. And then you also have people in the firm who are really good with people. And you let them do what they're good at. Don't make them do everything.
Yeah, and I think I've spoke to some people that have that, but they have those two parts of their firms very, very separated. Almost like they run them like separate entities, because they just you get a lot of conflict.
They need to work together.
Yeah, you have to work together, but it's really tough because it's a trade-off, right? Like you can't give that level of service to 1,000 clients that you can if you only have 40. Right. And for the price, you just can't. Because if you're taking that model of 1,000 clients and you're only charging them $150 a month or whatever, right, you're kind of going that super efficient technology model. You can't provide thousands of dollars of advising, right? In that price point. And so that's where it's a yin and a yang, I think, on which one, but you can't be stuck in the middle. Like you got to start picking a path you want to take your firm.
Hey, well, speaking of career paths and the future of the profession and whatnot, I've got another article from the Wall Street Journal about Amazon's Jeff Bezos. So he was at a forum, panel discussion of some sort, and he gave some advice, right? Or he talked a little bit about his methods, how he works. And the thing I love that he said is that he said that he never tries to schedule a meeting before 10 a.m. because he likes to have his mornings clear to think and to get ready for the day and all that stuff, which I really like, because I have trouble with early morning meetings. As you know, David, I was late getting into the office so we could record this podcast.
LA traffic, right?
So yeah, I can blame LA traffic, but honestly, it's me. And so I like to use my morning to read, to catch up on the news, right? To get ready for the day. And so I'm going to take this advice, and we're going to move all of our podcast recordings to after 10 a.m. Pacific time, if you are okay with that.
That works.
And the other thing that Bezos says is that he doesn't try to do a lot. Every day, he tries to make a small number of high quality decisions daily. So like if he makes 3 good decisions a day, he's happy with what he's done. And, you think about that, right? And this is completely the opposite of how a lot of us operate and how we learned to operate in accounting, which is get up at 6 a.m. and work until God knows when, right? Work constantly, put out as much work as you can, and do a lot every single day. And if you want to be successful, I mean, right, I think Warren Buffett's another guy who's like this, right? He doesn't try to do a lot, and he saves a lot of time for just reading and learning and educating himself. And I mean, I'm convinced that we as accountants have to figure out how to do less, but do more at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, that's that treadmill, right? And I think you get up in the morning and you're checking your email, and next thing you know, you 14 hours later, the day's over, and you're like, oh, I didn't do anything today. Right. And
you did a lot, but you didn't do the things that were really important, right? The priorities, right? You didn't work on your firm's marketing, or you didn't build in some automation to a process that you do every single day. And if you just automated it, you'd save yourself 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, right?
Yeah. And it's that adage of like making your bed when you wake up, right? So that way, at least at the end of the day, you're like, I accomplished one thing, like that got done at least today. Because
well, and I feel like those firms like Jason Blummer's, where they focus on a small number of high quality clients, you can have that lifestyle, right? You can start your meetings at 10 a.m. because it's not like you have a million people pounding down your door.
Well, but I think it's carving out your time and controlling your calendar, right? And it's I think it's a bigger personal development issue, less how you run your firm. Because if you can't do it to yourself first, there's no way you're going to really implement this in your firm, right? And it's like, how do you protect your own time is valuable, and how you protect that? I've struggled this with myself, like really bad. So, but I totally understand.
Hey, so we're still talking about CPA firms, right? Or we started talking about them. I've got another article about billable hours, if you're up for that.
Jump in.
So this is called Focus on Billable Hours Drives Millennials Away. It's by Garrett Wagner. There's been a lot of talk about billable hours and why that's a bad idea, right? I mean, Ron Baker's the prophet, and there are many of us who are followers of him. But what I like about Garrett's article is that he takes a different perspective on it. And he says that the reason that you need to get away from billable hours, or at least another great reason, is that millennials don't want to work for you if you're evaluating them based on billable hours. As it gets harder and harder to recruit talent and find good CPAs, we're going to need to be able to recruit them. And if they don't want to work with us because we force them to have a timesheet, record billable hours, then it's going to become a big problem.
Yeah, well, especially if a lot of millennials are coming out, and if they've been using cloud software, maybe they're familiar with a little bit of automation tools in their Gmail, and they've been using some things to automate their life. It really that technology and being more efficient makes them. I can see where they're conflicted. Like, wait, you're going to pay me, you want me to bill X amount of hours, but if I just do the job in 5 minutes because I use these 5 or 6 tools instead to make my job more efficiently, like, I'm sure it's hard for them to reconcile, right? And he's right. Yeah. People are going to like, you don't want to be judged like that. You want to be judged on how efficient, or how fast you got things done. Right.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Millennials, we are digital natives. A lot of us. We at least experienced, the wonder of collaboration tools in college, right? A lot of us got Google Apps in college, so we understand the value of not having to email stuff back and forth and whatnot, right? Just to give it a small example. And so, yes, if I automate a process as a millennial in a firm, I cut my billable hours, and now I don't make my goal and I don't get my bonus. And I think that is ridiculous. I just made the client happy. I made everything faster and better. And yet the firm's incentive structure is completely against that.
Yeah. So it's really, how they measure value.
Yep.
Right? And if you're still measuring on the billable hour, and that's how you're measuring the value of your staff, then you're just not going to keep millennials on your team, and they're going to go to more forward-thinking firms ultimately. Yeah.
Or they're going to leave public accounting. They're going to get an industry where they don't have to fill out a timesheet. Right. I think that the big firms in particular, or they go to small firms where, they don't get evaluated based on the billable hours so much. I think that big accounting firms are going to have a real problem if they don't make the switch. They're going to have a huge talent issue, and I don't know how they're going to recruit new partners. I mean, if you're smart, why, or at least smart ones, right? If you're really smart, why would you want to be part of that culture when there's so many good alternatives now?
Well, maybe you there want to go to, this is our next article. Maybe they go to work for PwC. I'm smart, right? But I want extra training. So PwC announced they are going to train it's like a digital skills program for the next 2 years. They're going to train 1,000 employees on technology, everything from like drones to blockchain. The interesting thing about this article was the 46,000 PwC employees, 3,500 employees applied, but they only really have spots for 1,000 in this program. So that's a big funnel drop down to only 1,000 employees get to do this. But also ties to the article last week as far as, hey, if somebody has blockchain on the resume, they're X percentage more likely to get an interview into that next round. So obviously this is in demand. So this is like, okay, so maybe you still judge your employees by billable hour, but maybe if you give them extra training on some of these new technologies, maybe they'll stick around.
Yeah. And of course, we don't have a lot of details as to what this program is, but we do know the time commitment is pretty intense. It's 10 hours per week for 18 to 24 months. So PwC is not skimping on at least the hours for this program. I do wonder if you participate, if those hours are going to come out of your pocket, or if you're going to have.
Where do these hours come from? Yeah.
Am I going to have to work, 60 hours instead of 50 or 70 instead of 60 in order to be able to do this program? But there's a quote in here that I really liked. I'm going to try to find it.
When you do that, there's a graph in there that's really interesting. And Microsoft Excel has been downgraded to the least important skill set for new hires. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, hold on. I hate this stat, okay, because this always comes out. Like all the FP&A tools like to say that Excel is not valuable anymore, or they try to imply that like it's been downgraded. Now, this is true. CFOs are not saying that Excel skills are as important as being adaptable to new technologies, according to this chart. And of course, it came from Adaptive Insights. But if you survey CFOs on what, if Excel skills are important, it's not like that's changed, right? Excel skills are still just as important as they ever were. It's just not what they are primarily looking for anymore.
Well, I think it's table stakes, right? Like you just have to have Excel skills. But hey, it'd be nice if you could also collaborate with others and communicate well, right? It'd be nice if you were able to easily adopt other new technologies. But yeah, it's like I think you have to have some base level of Excel, right? Just to get your foot in the door now. Yeah.
Oh, and here's the quote that I liked. As long as we're teaching people the right skills, it'll keep them agile. Gone are the days of being done learning after getting your bachelor's.
Like, has there ever been a time where that was the case? Like you could just stop.
I feel like in the accounting profession, right? Like other than like your CPE on tax or audit regulations or whatnot. Yeah, kind of. Okay. Right. I mean, you could really easily just not learn new stuff, as long as you just kept up with those professional CP requirements. But no, not possible anymore. Tech is still such a tiny, tiny part of the accounting curriculum. I can't believe it. It's just absurd. I mean, there was one elective when I was going through school, and that was, I'm a career changer, so that wasn't that long ago. One elective on QuickBooks.
Wow. So you have to do it yourself, or at least PwC is making an effort to bring it to everybody. Well, to a small percentage of their employees anyways.
Well, that's all I've got this week. Anything else?
I think I saw an article. It may have been Miss America just happened or something. And I think Miss Missouri was an accountant.
Oh, yeah. I did hear about this. I saw this on Going Concern.
Yeah. Other than that, I didn't see much. I think she didn't win. So I don't know if it's, if she would have won, it would have been much bigger news. I think we would have led with that story. But I think I saw that. So it's hey, good job.
Well, she wants to continue her education and become a CPA, I believe. So that's great.
Well, nobody told her about the billable hour. That would have been great if that was the question. They asked they asked the Miss America pageants these really in-depth questions. You could be, what is your opinion of the billable hour? And that would have been.
Well, I hope she would say that she thinks it's crap, because it's not like they evaluate the Miss America contestants on how many hours they put into their preparation.
No,
right? All they care about is results.
That's true. Good point. And on that, I think
maybe firms should be more like Miss America pageants.
There's a whole blog post in there. All right, Blake, we have a whole week to go through. Maybe we'll see some new news, new exciting stuff, and we'll be back here on Friday.
Sounds great, David. It was a pleasure. And where should people reach you if they want to say hi or send you a story?
Twitter's going to be easiest, at David Leary. Also LinkedIn. You can just find me on LinkedIn, David Leary. Same handle.
I am at Blake T. Oliver on Twitter, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Have a good one, and we'll see everybody next week.
See ya.